Hi, welcome to Portfolio Career Curious. This is a free on-demand workshop for professionals that are in the process of figuring out what's next for themselves professionally and have a curiosity about future work models. So this very first session, topic one, is about getting off the ladder so you can build a portfolio career. It is as I said, completely foundational. It's a great way for you to get a sense of what this model can offer you and some of the challenges of how it is different from traditional 9 to 5s. There are future events that will be scheduled over the course of the next quarter or two, so keep an eye out for those if you find this one super useful. My name is Bree. I'm the founder of Build with Bree. If you are watching this video, you likely found me on LinkedIn or Substack or via a share of one of my essays from someone in your network. I'm super honored that you're here to watch this and that you are making this investment in yourself today. I hope that you get something or some set of somethings out of this presentation. I'm a coach in addition to a product marketer, which is, I guess, my titles. But in my heart of hearts, I'm a storyteller. I love sharing information and writing and helping make sense of this wild and crazy world that we live in, helping people find purpose and meaning and better integrating their work with their lives. So for some context setting, I'll give you a little bit of a foundational understanding of what we will cover in this presentation so that you can fully understand what you're going to walk away with. You should, by the end of this session, understand what the heck is a portfolio career. You'll have an understanding at a high level of why it is gaining in popularity, how to think about building one for yourself, how to scale it once you've started, and last but most certainly not least, certainly a question that I get a lot in my inbox is, how the heck do I market myself once I choose to build a portfolio career? So we have a lot to get through. Let's get started. And I'll start with this foundational kind of overview. In the event this is your first time hearing about portfolio career, April Rinn is a fellow future of work advocate. She wrote a really phenomenal Harvard Business Review case study and then also a book called Flux, I believe. And she likes to kind of juxtapose traditional 9 to 5 career paths with that of a portfolio careerist in this method. So a latterist, as April would describe it, follows a very traditional path. They're almost like a subject matter expert or specialist. They have a super narrow, potentially experience lens that might be functional in nature. And this often requires them to have a set of credentials. They may get advanced degrees in order to qualify for these positions. They are focused on climbing and going in one direction because there is often a fixed definition of success in this model. And this makes it somewhat difficult to pivot once you've invested the time, energy, financial resources into this path. The sunk cost is pretty high, and it might be difficult if you've invested or over-indexed in one subject matter to pivot to something different. A portfolioist, on the other hand, is interested in a non-linear career path. This is super friendly for generalists in that all experiences are considered valid. It's about curation of experiences, looking at education as a lifelong learning process, which means it's evergreen. And by virtue of all of these components of the portfolio career, the definition of success is pretty open, which is exciting. And that, because of it being open, makes it much easier for you, because of that curated set of experiences, to change course, which is much more advantageous in the job climate that we find ourselves in today in 2025. Now, you may be wondering why this is becoming particularly popular or a hot topic today. And from my perspective, this conversation and discussion around portfolio careers really started in earnest back in 2025 when COVID happened. It was, really an unmistakable symbol, not only of a public health crisis, but also the acceleration of a breakdown of traditional job security that catapulted all of us knowledge workers into remote work. It transformed the digital work landscape, and it created this fear of mass economic uncertainty. All of that is to say, it was a massive wake-up call to all of us individually and collectively that the systems and institutions we had come to depend on could be more fragile than we had previously realized. The second factor I would say is like in the midst of remote work, so not all of COVID was bad, it created this boom of technologies that enabled remote work. Things like Zoom taking off, different tools that enabled facilitation. This blurred boundaries between work and life, but it also enabled us to transform how we collaborate and build cultures. Videos like what you're watching today are possible for me to share this in a way that it wasn't possible before COVID. So all of these tools, now you have AI, and that is enabling the cost of switching into entrepreneurship to lower so that you can learn a lot of skills in real time as you find yourself needing to learn them. And then you're enabled by these technologies to speed up your productivity. Additionally, as we were coming to terms with the precarity of our institutions, many individuals were also feeling precarious themselves, unstable, insecure employment that really put into question whether we could put all of our eggs in one basket, as there were waves of tech layoffs starting in 2023, not only at the big technology companies, big tech companies, but also smaller startups with the rise of interest rates. So all of that is to say, we are living through a time of massive transition in work. The post-industrial the post-industrial era promise of stable employment is now way more fluid and uncertain than what we were historically used to. And it's not just me saying this. Last year, both LinkedIn and OECD came out with some pretty robust reports about portfolio careers. In LinkedIn's report, it surveyed a large cohort of professionals. 61% of those surveyed professionals who were flagged in their survey as having some form of portfolio career, meaning more than one source of income, felt more secure than their surveyed counterparts. OECD, they typically report on this more frequently. They looked at the global workforce and found, well, right now it's 35% are projected to have a portfolio career. In just 5 years, 50% is projected to have a portfolio career by 2030. That's a huge leap. There's a ton of transition happening. All of that is to say, the world of work is changing, and likely so are you. You have a ton of talents and passion that are likely way too big for one job. You likely at this stage of your career want some more integration, not just balance. You want to get out of the cycle of burnout. And with the economy being what it is, you want some more financial stability, a little bit more of a rainy day fund in uncertain times, and a way to protect yourself and your livelihood. You're also likely prioritizing autonomy and agency because you've got tons of experience and chops that you can leverage to do really cool projects. And last but not least, you want work that feels a little bit more human. You want to feel connected to a deep sense of purpose in what you're doing and why you're doing it. So that's a little bit about portfolio careers at a macro level and why they're happening. Now I want to talk about what they look like. And so this image comes from a Substack piece by a peer of mine named Anna McKenzie, who some of you who are watching may follow. She has a huge cult following of 8,000 people as of today, and it is no surprise why. She is a phenomenal writer, and she also does really beautiful illustrations. This one came out about last year where she showcased some, not all of the permutations of what a portfolio career might look like. And I'm going to walk you through a couple of them. So in the upper left here, you kind of see what we have historically, when pre-pandemic, thought about in terms of portfolio careers. This would be your side hustle. I'm not the biggest fan of the term because I don't like the term hustle, and you'll get a sense of why that is later on in the presentation. But in this case, 80% of your energy is focused on a full-time job, and then the rest may be what you do on the weekend that brings in some supplemental income. A full-time founder, you wear many hats in this role, even if it's technically one role. You also are portfolio career in that you might be working on the accounting, taxes, you might be doing business development while also doing product development. So that also counts. You might be primarily a consultant, and then you have a digital product that is an opening price point product for people that can't necessarily afford to pay you for higher ticket consulting efforts. And then you may write. And then the bottom two pie charts are more some of the style that are starting to crop up in the last year or two and be more in vogue, which are more of a fractional model. So the bottom right, you might have 2 to 3 clients. One of them may take up half of your time, the other two, 25% of your time, or less than 25. Sorry, I can't do math. And then some freelance writing. And then what I would guess is Anna's style of portfolio career: a couple of clients, advisory work, brand partnerships, mentorship, and some writing. So this is not the full exhaustive list. I'm here to tell you, having worked with 163 clients, and this includes workshops, the amount of possibilities for how to compose this for yourself are limitless, and it really comes down to you being the deciding factor of what it may look like. But hopefully this gives you a taste. My philosophy on portfolio careers is heavily influenced by Charles Handy, who was kind of like the OG portfolio careers before portfolio careers really started becoming a thing. He really saw likely where the direction of work was going. And it's more of a whole person work philosophy. So thinking about a person's professional time, energy, and income as being intentionally distributed across multiple roles, both paid and unpaid, and being in service not only of providing for yourself and your family, but also contributing to society. He has a ton of phenomenal books. They're available on in bookstores and then also Amazon. I highly encourage you to read all of them. You can also, if you're looking for a condensed version, I have an essay on his philosophy that's available on my website. If you go to the essays tab, that will give you a short skim of his philosophy. Or you can just go through the rest of this presentation and I will weave in his philosophy into some of what I present here today. So if you can only watch this to understand what this whole person philosophy is, I like to break these things down into 2x2s. So on one axis, you have sovereignty. Sovereignty is just like a fancy word for freedom. You have low financial sovereignty. So the job instability that we have right now creates a lot of financial sovereignty problems. And then on the other end of that same axis is self-sovereignty. So think full creative freedom, lots of ownership over your time. So two opposite ends of the spectrum. On the other axis, you have the speed with which you're trying to move. And also what I would say is like ownership over your time being kind of owned by other parties. So that's just grounding you in the axes. Let's walk through what's in each of these quadrants, in my opinion. So we talked about the ladderist approach of looking at a career. That's in this bottom left, low financial security today. That wasn't always the case. And then lower levels of autonomy, lower levels of time availability to develop a portfolio career because you have super structured employment, this promise, whether it exists or not, of steady income. You have very little control over your time and energy because you've handed that over to one party that provides for your livelihood. And you've chosen some form of predictability or the perception of that. And in turn, you've given up some flexibility. Now, staying in the bottom half of this 2x2. I would put fractional work and gig work in the bottom right quadrant. That means you're moving in the territory of having more freedom in the sense that you leave traditional work. You're often taking on more clients and gigs to make your ends meet financially. You're also looking at high experimentation because you're trying to figure out, often in the beginning, what types of clients are right for you, what types of projects. The downsides of that is that you often don't have as much time freedom to work on your projects. You're often providing your services to help move a startup forward in their marketing plan, for example. Or if you are a true gig worker, maybe you're working 40 to 50 hours of work a week as a TaskRabbit service provider, right? So you're not necessarily building your own business, you're offering a service in exchange for income. There is risk as you're figuring out the right balance of clients and projects types to take on of burnout. Now, moving into the upper top portion of this 2x2, low financial security again, I put sabbaticals and side hustles in the upper left. And by that, I mean, you may have a rainy day fund in the sabbatical case. So you've planned for some time off to invest in yourself, family, or pursuits that are not tied to economic outcomes. So you may be taking care of yourself, but you're not necessarily saving either because you're valuing peace and rhythm over some form of prestige. And you're certainly not sure if you want a portfolio career. Side hustle I put in this camp too, because while you are maybe bringing in additional income beyond your standard 9 to 5, you are likely still in the 9 to 5. You're not quite sure if you want it to fully replace your 9 to 5. And you're not quite sure if you want it to go to more than like some small fraction of your business, and you always reserve the right for it to be something that you don't want to ever walk away from. The model that I'm very interested in helping my clients create for themselves is in the upper right. I call it the integrated portfolio. This is where you have high agency over your time, your energy, and your creative choices. And it means that you are building slowly and intentionally. You're not going to get here in like 2 to 3 months. So this means you're not driven by urgency. But because of that, you are often living your life philosophy and making choices in alignment with that life philosophy. And this requires a high degree of patience. You're playing the long game. And a high degree of self-attunement, which is super hard to do when you've been working in corporate for potentially a long time. So that's kind of the way to think about these different forms of poly work. Okay, now, with all of that in mind, you might be wondering, well, what do you define as work? Labor to me is not just paid work, which is why I've developed a framework, again, strongly influenced or heavily influenced by Charles Handy. And it includes six buckets of labor, not just work that we are paid for. And I'm going to go through each of them. But before I do, I want to encourage you, if you would like exercises in addition to this video, you can go ahead and hit pause on this video and then go and open up the second link. There, you don't have to exchange emails or anything like that. Go and make a copy of the workbook that accompanies this Loom video. And you can go through this framework yourself, and I'll walk you through step by step what makes up your portfolio career from my perspective. So let's jump into it. Okay. First bucket of your portfolio career is your wage work. So these are meaningful paid roles ideally meaningful, where you contribute your skills and time in exchange for salary or an hourly wage. That's what a lot of the conversation today around portfolio careers focuses on. This is really your paid work. The second bucket is what I call caregiving. So these are often invisible things or invisible work that we put forth, but they're essential to our family and our friends, and they help emotionally support, financially support, provide that caregiving where the infrastructure, particularly in the US, may not be as readily available or financially accessible. So we have to account for it because it's part of your energetic investment in life. Okay, third bucket is your acts of service. So this is the work you do to give back to the world and your communities of choice at large. This work is driven by a deep sense of purpose or values, and you are unpaid. There is compensation for this. You are doing it out of the kindness of your heart. The fourth bucket is upskilling. So like I said, a portfolioist is a lifelong learner. It's an evergreen way of investing in your career. So you need to reserve some cycle, some capacity for intentional learning and growth activities to expand your capabilities that exist right today at this point in time and your skill sets to form the skill sets and capabilities you want or the opportunities that you want to have open to you 3, 6, 9 months, a year from now. It's on the go. Okay, and then the last two buckets, I kind of put them together. Kind of, it feels unintentional, but it is highly intentional in that you don't get paid for these either, but they're super important. So exploratory R&D. These are your experiments. Think of these as entrepreneurial, creative, freelance work where you are setting your own rates and terms. So this could be, I'm going to just try out coaching and see if I like it. And I'm going to charge friends $15 an hour and I'm just going to give it a shot. Okay. Or it could be, I'm going to write a short story and maybe it's an ebook, maybe it's not. The viability, profitability, and your interest level for these initiatives is TBD. This means success is not, it happens and it's, if it doesn't skyrocket, I fail. It's, I'm going to try these things and see how I feel about them and if there is person or product market fit. And that's what you need to learn from this bucket. It's important to have some experiments and irons in there. And then the last bucket, I've intentionally broken this out from caregiving because I don't want to get lost, especially if you are a caregiver. Often you are the last person to be taken care of. And it is important if you are developing a portfolio career to protect the space to care for your well-being, including your physical, spiritual, and mental health. So all of these facets of your labor are part, in my mind, of your portfolio career. Wage work, and this is super important, you have to pay your bills unless you're independently wealthy, is a big function of it. And there's a lot of there, but we cannot overlook the other aspects of your portfolio career. So I tend to go through this exercise with my clients. I also encourage people that go through this framework to, at minimum, go through this exercise once a week or once a quarter or once a month, whatever cadence feels right, to manage yourself, to make sure you're not underinvesting in some of these areas and overinvesting in others. And I'll give you an example. An early stage portfolio careerist, I would expect to have a high degree of experimentation going on because you're relearning what you like and you're trying things on for size and then dumping the things that don't. Okay. Now, if you're 2, 3, 4 years in and you have 100% exploratory projects, that's going to be a problem in that you need to bring in money, you need to pay your bills. And what I don't want you to do is get yourself in a position where you crash and burn, you burn through your whole life savings, and then you have to go back to the 9 to 5 that you were trying to run away from. So this is a really good benchmarking tool to make sure you're taking care of all of the things that will sustain you for a healthy, long-term, intentional portfolio career. So we talked about what a portfolio careers is. We talked about what it might look like. We understand now why people are really fascinated by it. You're jazzed. Maybe you were jazzed about this before you dialed into this call or before you started watching dialed in. How do you start? Most people are deeply interested in this model and then they get completely overwhelmed because they're thinking about the vision they have for their portfolio career 5 years from now. I want to be an accomplished author. I want to have a passive income stream, a course that leverages my marketing positioning skills. I want to have a podcast. I want to have a YouTube channel. I want to be viral on TikTok. Like, layer on all the things that will immediately, as I'm saying this and you're listening to this, start to overwhelm you because you're like, how do I even begin? You are not alone. Most people feel exactly this feeling when they feel drawn to this model, and it's totally normal. But what I would encourage you to do is take a deep, deep breath, breathe out, and realize that the whole point is to just follow your curiosity in this process. Start somewhere. You dialing into this video and watching it could be step one. Step two could be you telling somebody, hey, I listened to this really interesting webinar, and now I'm trying to evaluate what I want or how I want to unlock this for myself. That is enough. Maybe it's drumming up a list of 20 people in your network and saying, hey, I want to build a portfolio career. This is what it is. Do you know of anybody that has a small project that I can take on 10 to 15 hours a week to give it a shot? You can always try this out with a tiny little experiment, reassess, and if you don't like it, walk away from it. Don't hyperfixate on the goal 5 years from now. So that's my little advice. Okay, now I did want to talk a little bit about 4 kind of rules of engagement once you do start getting going. As I mentioned, we tend to hyperfixate when we get started on the end goal a couple of years from now. And we get so overwhelmed and it incapacitates us, or we do everything out of the gate. And that is rule number 1, to pace yourself. Think about it as a marathon, not a sprint. If you are 20 years into your career, remind yourself, I have 20, 25 years more of my portfolio career to go. I've got time. I'm going to start with an idea or a project. I'm going to build upon what I like, and then I'm going to give up or shed what I don't like and constantly iterate. A common phrase around this is to layer. So I'll give you an example, pick on myself a little bit, and walk you through my portfolio career evolution over the course of the last 15 months. So I started this journey in 2023 and started in earnest with a webinar series called I Am Not Fine. It was a series for tech professionals that were either out of jobs, so had lost their jobs unexpectedly, or frankly were burnout. So the whole thesis of this webinar series was to give people a space to talk about taboo topics in tech. I absolutely loved it. I took some coaching courses, and then I formed my LLC after that experience because I found myself really missing the process of coaching people after working for 8 years as a people manager. Fast forward to 2024. At the point midway through 2024, I was 6 months into my business, and I thought, I think I'm ready for a full-time job. And I started looking, and I knew around the 9 or 10 month point, I was ready to layer that in. I'd found the right opportunity. I was extended an offer. I started at a company called Apartment List. And so then I had 2 income streams. I layered in a newsletter as well, because at that point I had enough reps writing on LinkedIn that it was no longer taking me forever to write a paragraph or 2 on LinkedIn every day. I was able to knock out my LinkedIn posts within like 5 to 10 minutes, and I wanted to get better at writing. And then I also wanted to take the conversations I was having in the private sphere with my clients and put them in the public space through a podcast. Also, selfishly, I wanted to get over my fears of hearing my own voice. And I started a podcast called the Portfolio Career Lab. And then in 2025, my focus was about creating a course that was an opening price point for people that couldn't afford my coaching services. I launched that at the beginning of the year, and really refining the products I already have, investing in training webinars like this one to make it more robust. And I'm writing a book, and that's it. So as you can see, I have a lot going on right now. I didn't when I started. I waited until I felt the moment when I could add more, and I added more. And what I'm adding more now isn't necessarily the writing piece. That's going to be a longer term play. It's not going to generate income right away. But this is the season that I'm in my portfolio career right now. And I'm constantly revisiting what I'm prioritizing. Rule number 2. The portfolio career will change your relationship to failure, at least in my opinion, way more than working at a startup will. I have worked in startups for just shy of a decade, and it is totally different when it's your own baby, your own dream. And there's many, many moments of reevaluating, because you're often working on this whole endeavor by yourself, unless you're in communities of like, what is happening? How do I figure this out? And then you get fueled by some second burst of energy or excitement, and you crash again. And it will make you go crazy if you focus on the binary of, am I succeeding or failing? And if you release that and look at it as like, what am I aiming to learn from these experiments that I'm taking on, or from these projects I'm taking on? What is this teaching me? It becomes a much more enjoyable experience, and frankly, much more liberating far sooner, even if you are pre-revenue. Third rule is to say no way, way more than you say yes in the beginning. So this is a quote from Zoe Scaman, who is influencer that I really enjoy in the branding space. She says it way better than I would. Time is everything when you are building a portfolio as an indie worker. Every yes that you commit to has a cost. It's your mortgage, your bills, and your healthcare. It's your buffer for the unexpected, and it's your ability to take a break. So don't take that lightly. Rule number 4, trust yourself. Easier said than done, especially if we've worked for a long time in corporate America. Learn to observe the space before your lizard brain kicks in. Observe the space that you're going to choose to occupy. Listen to that little voice inside of you. And that takes time also. So there's often a super blurry line between fear and your instincts, and it's going to take you time to figure that out. You're going to also have to define what success is. There's not going to be someone over your shoulder telling you what it looks like. And that means you need tons of space to become attuned to yourself, which means you need room for play and experimentation. So again, be careful of not letting the lizard brain kicking in and a mountain of shoulds. Shoulding all over yourself is like the opposite of what you want to do when building a portfolio career. Now, last topic for today is thinking about how the F to market yourself. So most people focus on what they do, and they think they need a way to bring together all of the projects that they're working on so that they're digestible or palatable to an audience. most likely online, but also when they're talking with friends and family, because it is non-traditional, even though it's becoming more popular. And what I would say is take a page out of Wes Cow's book. She wrote this great piece in 2020 called The Spiky Point of View. And the spiky point of view is here to save you. It is a clear, bold perspective that others can choose to disagree with, but that you yourself are willing to stand behind. And to be clear, it's not facts, although facts are included. It's not just facts. It's your thesis on how the world works. And it has to be rooted in your lived experience, your instincts, and something that you are convicted about. And because of being rooted in those things, it's going to be extremely unique to you and damn near impossible to replicate. So my question for you, this is also in the workbook that is provided on my website. What is yours? It's kind of living at the intersection of what is surprising and true. But if you want a little bit more color of what that is, think about the 5 qualities of a spiky point of view. It's debatable if everyone is going to agree with you. It's not spiky. You are not going to be for everyone. You're going to be for some set of someone's. Second, it needs to be purposeful, not provocative. So don't just aim to stir the pot. Be interesting and authentic. Third, you need to teach your audience something new. I hadn't thought about it that way. Is like the vibe that you want to give people. Fourth, it's defensible even if unproven. So an example here, because this one's a little bit more theoretical, is my views on portfolio careers. Maybe you're like, Bree's model is not for me. I just want the poly work. I just want to make money. And I'm not really interested in this stuff she's talking about, highly integrated style of work. That's okay. But it's bold and reasoned, right? So you can choose in or out of the adventure of working with me. And then lastly, it's conviction led. People are not going to believe in you if you don't come across as confident in believing in something. So you have to believe in it. The conviction has to come across and you have to advocate for it. So some examples, if helpful, is from the portfolio career space. And these are 4 of my peers with very different positioning. I didn't actually run this past any of them. This is just my take on how they show up with their platforms online of what I think their spiky points of view are at this point in time. Obviously subject to change because we're human and our interests and skills and what we talk about evolves. Anna Mack, who I've talked about earlier, if I were to write one for her, would be every portfolio careerist needs an operating system to scale their business successfully. You may not believe in that. You may not like operating systems, so you may not choose Anna, and that's okay, but the right people will. Millie Tamani, the founder of Generalist World, talks a lot about generalists, which is a style of portfolio careerists. And Millie talks a lot about how generalists are the power players of the future of work, right? You can opt in or out of that. Julie Fideli, also a portfolio career mentor, focuses a lot of her work on leveraging human design to help her clients build meaningful and fulfilling portfolio careers. So if you're into human design, you'll probably gravitate to Julie. Sheena is building a 2-sided marketplace for fractional entrepreneurs, and her working thesis is that operators are the future of entrepreneurship. So if you're interested in fractional, you'll probably gravitate to Sheena, her content, and all of her tools that are available on Substack, which are phenomenally helpful when getting started in this style of work. And then for me, my thesis has evolved, surely, but I believe that, like today, make your thinking visible. Your portfolio isn't about what you've done. It's about how you've solved problems, how you see the world, and who you are in the process of becoming. So mine rolls in identity, a little bit of product thinking, and also storytelling. So again, there's a little bit of something for everyone, even though we technically do the same thing. So hopefully that's helpful to you. And that concludes this particular session. Can't believe we're at 40 minutes so far. I am going to have another session this summer in mid-July after the 4th of July holiday, and it will be about anti-influencer branding. This is one of my favorite people that I've built my brand off of. I won't give away the secret sauce of this session, but if you are interested, go ahead and give me a follow on LinkedIn. I will be announcing how to sign up for that event. Go and check out my website. There's loads of essays there for you to tap into. Or if you're interested in booking a free discovery call, there is a Calendly link on my website, or you can directly email me. I would love to work with you. And if not, if this is all you need, please share your experience, point other people to this tool. Again, I'm trying to make this information accessible so that everybody succeeds. And I hope you took something from today. Thank you so much for sticking with it. Take care.